I will not approve your visa at any cost. Complain wherever you want.
Midnight at a busy airport. One officer, one traveler, one stamp that changes everything. A calm woman with perfect papers steps up to the glass. He doubts her, pushes back, and refuses her entry, never knowing he has just turned away a government minister on an official visit. What follows is a slow-burn battle under cold lights and silent cameras, where small choices carry heavy weight. Stay with this story until the last second. The final turn will echo long after the planes have landed. If you enjoy tense, real-life mystery stories, please subscribe to the channel and tap the bell so you never miss the next one. Where are you watching from? Comment your city name below. The hall swam with light that never meant warmth. It was past midnight, the hour when voices thinned to tired whispers and wheels of suitcases sounded like distant rain. The glass walls of the airport held a silver night outside, planes fixed like sleeping birds. At the immigration desks, the screen showed faces, names, lines of code, and little clocks that measured each person like a timer on a stove. The hum of the air system pressed in, the same sound every night, a steady line through the hours that made men think they were awake when they were wrapped in routine. Jack Mercer rubbed the corner of his badge with his thumb as the next traveler stepped up. He had worked this desk for years. He knew the faces that were trouble, knew the tricks, the stories that stumbled, the eyes that seemed to beg before the words even came. He wore a tie that had given up its color and a suit that always looked damp under the lights. He believed he kept order. He believed he did not need to explain things to people who were guests, not yet welcome. The woman came forward with a calm that did not fit the hour. She was alone. She wore a dark coat, cut clean. Her hair was braided and coiled close, neat. Her eyes were clear and still. She placed her passport and papers down with care, as if farmers put down fruit they had just picked. Her hands were quiet and steady. "Good evening," she said, and the voice was even, a voice that knew rooms where people listened. Jack did not look at her right away. He lifted the passport, felt the weight of it, saw the color that signaled what region she came from. He did not show that he noticed that it was an official passport. He looked at the date. He looked at the visa. He saw the purpose stated in letters. Government meetings, trade delegation, 3 days. "How long will you stay?" he said, though the answer sat in black and white under the glass. 72 hours, she said. "My return is booked." She slid her phone across partway, not enough to be pushed, but enough for him to see the reservation on the screen. The airline code, the time, the seat, all lines in neat order. He did not look at the return booking. He pressed the questions he had learned to press when the eyes across from him were brown like this. "Where will you stay?" "Parkside Hotel," she said. "The booking is in the file you have." "Who invited you?" His tone shifted, just enough to let her hear the doubt. He kept his face flat. He did not say the words that were in his mind, but he let them sit in the space, heavy. He tilted his chin in a way that made it clear she had to work for the chance to stand on the other side of the glass. She did not look away. "The Department of Trade." "Mr. Reeves, we have a meeting at 9 in the morning. There is a letter in that folder with his signature. There is also a note from your home office, confirming." Her voice remained even. There was no edge, no visible impatience. He opened the file. He saw a letter, a seal, an email printed with headers and dates. He closed it, set it aside. He did not scan the QR code she offered. He clicked on his screen instead, the system that took longer than paper, the one that made him feel like he was doing something serious. "You have been here before," he said. 4 times. "For what?" "Meetings. Health. Education. Sister City Agreement." "I am a minister for industry and transport," she said. She said it not as a challenge, but as a fact, simple like how one says their last name. He looked up then, eyes flicking from screen to her face. The habit in him did not want to let this change his rhythm. He had seen travelers call themselves many things. He had seen printed cards that meant nothing when the person had no ties, no reason to go back, no sense of bounds. He had seen people smooth one story into another until it sounded like a song they were tired of singing. "Minister," he said, the word flat, not believing or caring. "From where?" She held his eyes. She said the name of her country, and it carried a weight. It was a place people knew, a place with oil and ports, a place with a long history. She did not raise her chin when she said it. She did not look at the security cameras that watched everything from above. He leaned back in his chair. Our system doesn't show your title, he said. You could be anyone. He clicked again, pulled up the travel history, saw that she had indeed been here in March, in June. He saw nothing bad, nothing flagged. He saw that she had always left when she said she would. He felt a sour mood rise. It had been a long night. He had been short with the student earlier, the one who could not find the address of his cousin. He had denied a man from the same region as this woman because the man had laughed when he called the wrong city by the wrong name. He thought of his own rules and how they had kept him safe, kept the place clean. He held those rules like a rail you grip when the train shakes. Tell me the real reason you're here, he said. Not the polished line. We both know what happens. He smiled without warmth. People come and stay. They think we will not notice. He saw the smallest change in her eyes. Not anger, not fear, just a line of sadness that seemed old and tired. I told you the reason. We have work to do. I have a suitcase with a gray ribbon. It contains 2 suits, a blue blouse, a black dress, 1 pair of shoes, files, and a gift from Mr. Reeves. She named the city where her offices were. She named the suburb where the Parkside Hotel sat. She named the roads she would take from the airport to the hotel. If you need it, I will show you my emails, she said, and turned her phone so the glow touched his hands, waiting. He moved the phone away with a finger. He could not say later that he had not looked. The camera above would show he did not. He cleared his throat. We have had fake government people before, he said. It's common. Especially, from your parts. The last 2 words slipped out like oil. They were not loud, but they were coded in a tone that said more than the words. He had said worse on other nights, when colleagues laughed and the coffee had an edge. He had said things about hair, about accents, about how some people always seemed to bring more cousins as if they were the shore and the cousins were waves. He did not use a slur. He did not need to. The meaning was pasted on the wall of his voice. Her jaw worked once, then settled. I am from a country, she said. It is not a part. It has a name. I said it. But if the system is not set up to confirm it, I will not argue with you here like this. You have a number to call. You have 5 minutes to use it before you make a decision that you'll want to take back. He looked at the cue, at the clock that always seemed to watch him. He thought of the supervisor who had told him last week they needed to cut the average time. He thought of the department memo that said VIP checks should go to a special lane. He thought of how overtime approval had been hard to get. He thought, too, of the feeling that rose in him when he said no, how the no felt like a gate closing one more job done. He leaned into the microphone built into his desk and said to her, quiet enough that it did not carry to the next counter, we have to be careful. We don't want people taking advantage. You understand? People from your background often play games with papers. He told himself he was being honest. He told himself he had to be tough. She took a breath. For a second, her eyes were glass. Then they cleared. I understand more than you think, she said. And you have my papers. I will wait while you call. He did not call. He opened a form on the system. He clicked the line that said refused entry. He clicked the line that said insufficient ties and concern about true reason. He clicked a line that said remarks. He typed combative, evasive. None of this was true. He typed it anyway. The stamp sounded like a door slamming at the end of a long hallway. She watched the stamp hit the page. Her face did not move. Only her hand rose, and she touched the edge of the glass that separated them, as if feeling if it was solid. I see, she said. Secondary, he told the guard, who appeared as if he had been waiting. They walked her past the line to the small room with the hard chairs. The door clicked closed behind her. He did not watch. He took the next passport. He scrubbed the quiet look from his mind with the rough cloth of motion. By 3 a.m., he could not shake the feeling that the lights were colder. He could not shake the way she had touched the glass. He tried to find someone to laugh about it with, but his usual partner was on a different shift, and the new guy was too eager to let the talk slide. He watched the room where they took people for extra checks. The door stayed shut. He told himself she would be on a return flight by morning, and he would forget this in a week. When his shift ended, he walked to the staff exit. His past clicked as always. He stepped into the dawn that looked like the color of stainless steel. The clouds lay heavy on the lanes that curved around the terminal. He drove home with the radio loud and the window cracked to keep himself awake. In the rearview mirror, he saw his eyes, red at the edges. He slept for 3 hours and woke with his heart beating fast for no reason. He made coffee that tasted like metal. His phone buzzed with a work message he did not read. He pulled on a jacket and went back. At the staff entrance, his card flashed red. The guard shrugged, checked the list, then waved him to the side room that they used for renewals and mistakes. Inside, the room was too clean, too silent. On the desk, a folder sat with his name on it. He opened it. Inside was a printout of his own refusal note from the night before. It was marked in yellow highlighter, his words bright, a messy light. A woman in a gray suit walked in. She was not police. The badge on her lapel showed an office. He did not see much. "Internal review," she said. "There was an irregularity last night." Her voice was a soft hammer. "You wrote that the traveler was evasive. The audio shows she answered every question. You wrote that she raised her voice. She did not." He felt a prickling at his neck. "Audio," he said. "Yes," she said, as if he should have known. "We are testing a new system for quality control." She did not smile. "You also failed to call the number available for government contacts. You failed to check the return booking. You failed to scan the verification code. You used language that might be seen as prejudice." He pressed his lips together. "Might be." She let the word hang. "We have to talk to you about process. Please come with me." They walked not to the floor where he worked, but to a conference room that looked out over the runway. The gray of the sky had not moved. In the glass, he saw his reflection next to hers. She was calm. He felt a child's hot resistance rising from somewhere he had thought he had laid to rest long ago. "Am I under suspension?" he asked. "That depends," she said, and placed another folder on the table. It was the same blue as the one he had ignored last night. She opened it and slid a photograph toward him. It was the woman from the night before, standing with a prime minister he knew from the news, both smiling, both holding a document with flags on it. "This is Minister Amaraminsa," the woman in the gray suit said. "She arrived last night on a scheduled visit. She did not use the diplomatic lane. She asked not to." His mouth moved before he could stop it. "Why would a minister do that?" he said. "They have a lane for this." "She is part of a review," the woman said, and her eyes did not move from his. "Your government and hers have launched a joint audit of border practices after complaints. She volunteered to test the system from the ground. She told us she would not draw attention to her status unless there was a safety issue. She wanted to see how a person, any person, would be treated when the file is in order and the person is not." She did not finish the sentence. She did not need to. Jack felt the air change in his chest. He said nothing. "She called her embassy from the secondary room," the woman said. "She did not ask to ruin anyone's career at 3 in the morning. She asked for you to be left in place until she could speak to you herself. She is in the building now. She asked that you come to meet her at 9. 9 was now." He looked at the clock. It said 8:58. He looked at his hand, and the skin on the back of it seemed thin. He nodded without meaning to and stood. They took him back to the hall with a light that never warmed anything. The queue was shorter than at night. Early business travelers, eyes already on schedules. A child fluttered a paper airplane behind a tired mother. The screens made soft sounds as each case moved forward. He looked at the lane where he had sat for years and felt, for a moment, like it belonged to someone else. She stood near the wall where the exit sign glowed green. The same coat, the same tidy hair. No guard flanked her. No press. She stood like a person waiting for an old friend in a place where they used to meet and talk about small things. When she saw him, she gave a small nod. "Mr. Mercer," she said. "Minister," he answered. He had not meant to say it with respect. It came out anyway. "Walk with me," she said. They walked back through the unused gate to a smaller room. It had a window that looked not at the runway, but at a concrete wall. The hum of the building filled any space their silence tried to make. He opened his mouth to say the few lines he had prepared in the last 3 minutes. That he had been tired, that the system was slow, that he had only been careful. She lifted a hand. Before you speak, she said, I want you to listen to what I heard you say. A small speaker clicked. His voice came out, not like he knew it, but sharper, thinner, like a knife drawn across glass. It said, we both know what happens. People come and stay. It said, people from your parts. It said combative, evasive. It said things he did not even remember choosing. The words made shapes in the air, shapes like bars. When it ended, the room felt close. He ran a hand over the back of his neck. He looked at the corner where dust gathered on the baseboard. I could have done some things last night, she said. I could have stepped to the side and made one call that would have had your badge in a drawer before sunrise. I could have asked for news crews. I could have asked for a formal apology in a loud voice. I chose not to. Do you know why? He shook his head. He wanted to say, because you are kind. He wanted to say, because it's not worth it. He said nothing. Because I care about systems more than I care about single scalps, she said. I care about what you do to people you do not know more than I care about what you did to me. And I am very tired of the idea that the only way to change anything here is to set fire to a person. I want you to feel the weight of what you hold, not just the stamp in your hand. He found his voice. People lie, he said. We have to catch the ones who do. And you think you see better than the papers, better than the codes, better than the returns, better than the calls you refuse to make? She asked. You think your eyes tell you which brown or black person will try to stay? Do you know how many white men with good suits you wave through without a call? He closed his eyes, just for a second, then opened them before the silence grew long enough to become admission. We have profiles, he said. Data. We go by what we've seen. You saw me, she said. You saw a woman who looked like what you think is a problem. You found a way to make your screen match your feeling. You used words that would stop me when your checks did not. That is not data. That is bias. He flinched. He had heard the training words. He had sat in rooms where a young person came in with a slide deck and said, we all have bias. He had nodded and stirred his coffee. He had never felt the word land on him like this, heavy and exact. She watched him, and her gaze was not cruel. It was steady. My revenge, if that is what you were waiting for, is not a public show. I do not need to see you beg. I do not need to see you lose your house. I need you to carry something. I need you to feel something you have made others feel, not for 5 minutes, but for long enough that it puts a mark in you that does not wash out. His heart beat hard in his throat. What are you going to do? He asked. She placed a thin notebook on the table. It was small, like something you could put in a pocket. You're going to work. But for the next 30 days, you will not sit at your desk. You will go to the other side of the glass. You will walk with passengers from the moment they step off the plane. The ones you deny, the ones you delay, the ones who cannot speak very well. You will sit with them in the secondary room. You will go with them when they eat the cold sandwich at 2 in the morning. You will sit beside them when they call home and say they are not coming. You will listen. You will write what you see. At the end of each day, you will come to a meeting with me and with your internal people, and you will read what you wrote. He stared. This is a punishment, he said, unsure if he was angry, relieved, or both. This is a mirror, she said, and a test. If you cannot do it, I will open the file that ends your work here. It will not look good. It will follow you. If you can do it, and if you can do it in good faith, we will work on more than that. We will use what you learn and what some of your colleagues will learn to shift the way you ask questions, the way you use the system. You will be part of fixing this. He swallowed. Part of him wanted the cleaner pain of being thrown out. He knew how to take that blow and stand. This slow dose, this thing that would sit in his chest and gnaw, was worse. Why me, he said. Because you are good at your job, she said. Good at this part of it. Good at reading people. That is why it is dangerous when you are unkind. I read your numbers. I read your notes. I spoke to people who have watched you for years. You are not a monster. You are a man with power who thinks he is just doing his best. That is the worst kind. If I can move you, I can move more than a policy. He sat back, the chair cold through his shirt. He looked at his hands. He thought of his father, who had taught him to hold a line and not bend because the world would flood in. He thought of the faces he had put into small boxes on a screen, the ones he stamped away. He thought of the woman in front of him and the way she did not gloat. Fine, he said. I will do your 30 days. They are not mine, she said. They are yours. The first night, he stood on Jet Bridge 9 and watched a wave of people spill in, their faces drawn by a long flight. A mother carried a sleeping girl with a ribbon in her hair. A young man held a plant in a plastic bag, the soil dry and loose. An old man with hands like roots walked slow and placed a hand on the rail. Jack walked beside a student as she held 3 paper folders close to her chest, her nails biting into the cardboard. He sat in secondary with a man from a place where the map is often read in the news. The man spoke slow English and kept saying, "My brother," and then the brother's name, like the name was a key that should open anyone's door. Jack held the man's coat while the man took a call and told his wife he'd be late, that he'd be fine. He watched the man's mouth press into a thin line when the call ended. He walked with a woman to the small window that looked out at a sliver of the night. The woman closed her eyes and put her hand on the glass the way the minister had done. He watched it from the other side this time, and he felt the way the glass kept touch from being complete. He wrote in the notebook. He wrote about the fear that made people laugh in small hard sounds. He wrote about the way the air smelled like coffee and metal and old carpet at 3 in the morning. He wrote about his own words from the years behind him, words that echoed now and made him sit back in a chair as if someone had pushed him. At the end of each day, he sat at a table with the woman in the gray suit and with Minister Mensah. He read. He stumbled sometimes. He had to stop and drink water. She listened. She asked questions that opened more doors. She asked what he had thought when he wrote combative and what he thought now when a teenager cried because he could not remember his uncle's postal code. He did not always have answers. When he did, the answers were small and they did not cover everything. On the 6th night, he sat with a woman in a red coat whose husband had had a stroke at a hotel 2 towns over. She had come on the soonest flight she could, and the call center had misheard the name and put a hold on her case because it matched some list. She waited while it was cleared. She cried without sound. He called the number for her. He waited on hold too. He felt the weight weigh. On the 10th day, he sat with a man who had a letter from his employer that had the wrong date. It was a typo, the man said. The sender is in bed now. She can fix it in the morning. Jack looked at the clock and thought of all the times he had said, "That is not my problem." He asked the night shift to call anyway. They reached someone who was up, feeding a baby. She opened her laptop and fixed the date. "New letter sent," she said. The man exhaled as if he had been holding his breath since he left home. Jack felt something in his chest loosen and then ache. The building stayed the same. The lights hummed the same tune. The clocks kept neat time. But the air around Jack changed. He walked a little slower. He stood at the side of a chair a little longer. When he had to say no, he said it without the hard edge that he used to put on everything as if to make sure the no went in deep and stayed. Sometimes the no hurt anyway. He wrote that down. On the 12th day, he sat on a bench outside the staff entrance. The wind pushed wrappers along the curb. His supervisor sat beside him, hands in his pockets, eyes on the ground. "She is something," the supervisor said, meaning the minister. "She is everywhere without standing in front. She has the home office boys waking up. They keep calling me and saying, 'Is she here? Is she watching me?' It's almost funny." Jack let out a breath. "She is watching me," he said. "You hate her for it?" the supervisor asked. He thought of the first day, of how he had wanted to snap. He thought of the last night, of how he had wanted her to keep talking. "I don't know," he said. "I think I hate what she showed me. I think I needed it." On the 15th day, he walked into work and found his badge lit red again. For a second, a familiar anger rose. Then the guard handed him a new badge with a different clearance and said, "Minister's orders." The new badge led him into places he had never been. Training rooms, a small lab where they were building a tool to check documents in seconds. He met a team who showed him how a quick check of the return ticket barcode could save someone an hour. He wrote in the notebook, "Why did I never scan?" On the 20th day, he saw a man he knew from years ago at the end of the hall. The man had been on the wrong side of Jack's desk once. The man saw Jack and did not look away. He walked over. "You refused me 5 years ago," the man said. "You were right that time. I had a plan to stay," he admitted, with a tired half smile. "But you spoke to me like I was dirt. I think of that every time I land now, and even when someone is kind, I wait for the dirt. It sits in me." Jack nodded. "I am sorry," he said. It was not the grand apology he had imagined someone might force out of him. It was a plain line. The man looked at him and held his gaze for a second, then put a hand on Jack's shoulder. "Then keep doing this," the man said. "It helps." On the 23rd day, just past midnight, he saw her again in the hall. She had shed the coat. She wore a simple black dress. She stood alone again, reading something on her phone. He walked over. "Minister," he said. She looked up and her face softened in a way it had not done in the small rooms. "Mr. Mercer," she said. "How is the notebook?" "Full," he said. "Heavier than it looks." She nodded. "Good. We will take it from you on day 30. You can keep a copy if you like. Many people do." "Can I ask you something?" he said. "You can ask." "Why did you touch the glass that first night?" he asked. "When I stamped." "What were you doing?" She glanced past him to the counter where he had sat, to the line where a man in a bright sweatshirt stood, shifting his weight. "Reminding myself that a barrier is a thing a hand can feel," she said. "Not just an idea. If you feel it, you also feel that it is made. Anything made can be changed. If I had not felt it, I think I might have taken your refusal as the way things are. I do not like to do that." She tucked a strand of hair back, a small human move amid all the policy and power. "Also, I was tired," she added, and there was a small smile that made him feel, for a moment, like they were simply two people awake in a too bright place. On the 29th day, he went to the small room and sat with a man who had been flagged because of name match. The man had a boy with him who liked to spin the chair. Jack played a quiet game with the boy where you catch the chair with a foot and keep it from turning too fast. The man told Jack that his wife had died 6 months ago and that this trip was to take his son to see the ocean for the first time. Jack called a person, and then another person, and then the person who could fix the file. He wrote in the notebook, "A thing that takes 3 calls should take 1. On the 30th day, he handed over the notebook. He felt exposed. He had put himself inside those pages. He had put his pride and his small, bad habits and his better moments and his old words, clean now and flat on the page. Amara took it and did not open it. "We will read this with a team who will make things," she said. "I do not collect sad stories to feel wise. I make tools. You will help us test them." He nodded. "What happens to me now?" "You go back to your desk," she said. "You do what you do. You do it like someone is in the room with you. Because someone is." She touched her chest. "Me, and the man with the plant, and the mother with the ribbon in the little girl's hair, and my sister, who sat in a room like your secondary room in another country for 12 hours because the clerk was bored and because he could be. She missed our father's last hour by 40 minutes. I am done with people missing things they cannot get back because a man like you thinks he has read a person in a glance." He felt his throat close. "I'm sorry," he said again, and this time it felt like it came from a place long closed. "Good," she said. "Now do better." He went back to the desk. He sat down. The glass looked the same, but it felt different. The first traveler in line stepped up, a woman in a jacket that did not fit right. She looked at him as if she expected the ground to give way. He smiled. Not big, not with teeth, just a small rise of his mouth that changed the air on the other side of the counter. He scanned the return ticket barcode. He picked up the phone and called a number when the system hesitated. It took 2 minutes. The woman's shoulders fell a fraction. She said, "Thank you," too fast, as if it might be taken back. He still said no sometimes. He said it when a man had the wrong papers and the wrong name and the wrong story. He said it without the edge he used to sharpen. He said it like a fact that had to be worked with, not a trap sprung for sport. He found that saying no that way took more from him. He found he could carry it. A week later, he stood by a gate waiting to board a flight to see his mother, who had fallen on the stairs. He had booked the ticket with the haste of panic and a discount fare. He had not checked the fine print. At the desk, a thin young man explained that he had to rebook. The words sounded like empty metal and his heart pounded. For a beat, the old anger lit. Then a woman in a dark coat stepped to the counter beside them, and the young man straightened. "Minister," he said. Amara turned and saw Jack. For a second, surprise softened into something like care. She did not pull a string to fix his flight. She did not need to. He took a breath and asked the young man to show him what to do. He did it. It cost him a fee and humility. He called his sister and told her he would be 2 hours later than he had said. His mother was fine. The world did not end because he had to wait. When he landed, he carried a small bag and a big sense of time. He thought of the night of the stamp, of the words that came back to him now and then in the dark. He thought of the 30 days that had rearranged his thoughts like furniture. He stepped out into the arrivals hall and saw 2 little children run to a man with a suitcase who bent and caught them. He smiled without watching himself do it. Months later, the tools they had built began to show up on the desks. The scanner for return tickets that took 5 seconds. The pattern check that watched for name matches across lists in a way that did not trap everyone who shared a common name. A set of prompts that asked a human to check their language when they wrote a note. A light that flashed if you typed combative without a reference to a specific action. A card on the desk that said, "Call before you refuse." It was not magic. It was what he had asked for on those nights when he had to sit with people in rooms that smelled like tired air. He saw Amara on a screen at a press event. She stood next to his own minister. They spoke about better tools, about respect, about how a border could be both secure and not cruel as a habit. She did not mention his name. He did not need her to. He remembered how he had spoken her name the first time and how it had caught his throat. Now it did not. Sometimes late, when the hall was thin and the glass was a cold line between 2 parts of the world, he would look up and see, in the reflection, the shape of a woman in a dark coat standing near the exit sign. He knew she was not truly there. He knew he had put her there in his mind to keep him straight. He liked that. It kept him from leaning on the little lies that had once been comfort. It kept him from forgetting. And in the small room off the side corridor, on a shelf above a resolution printer that ate paper for fun, sat a worn blue notebook. If you opened it, you would read about a stamp that sounded like a door, and a touch on glass that felt like a turn, and a line of strangers who all wanted the same small thing. Not to be made less by a room where light never truly warmed anything. He knew that revenge, if that is what this had been, did not always need to break. Sometimes it needed to bend a man so he could see past himself. He knew now how it felt to walk around the barrier and stand with the ones on the other side, if only for a moment, and then to go back, carrying the weight of that moment in his pocket like a small stone to rub when his hand itched to be careless. He kept his hand there often. He had not stopped the habit. It kept him honest. He wished it had started sooner. He had learned that the sweetest revenge was not his fall, but his work, watched and measured, where he had to face himself in every face that looked up at him from the other side of the glass.